All right, everybody. My apologies for being late. There's a big truck stuck on Walnut down here. So I had to go through UT campus, and that's never fun on a Tuesday. So anyway, go ahead and get started. Get this May 13th, 2025 TPO Technical Committee meeting called to order. Looks like we do have a quorum, so thank you for that. Do we want to do just quick brief introductions? A couple of folks here maybe I haven't seen before, so we'll go around the room starting with Mr. Craig over there.
Starting with me, Craig Lipke from the TPO staff, and Jonah Bird just went out. He'll be back in a moment as well for the TPO staff.
Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Laura Smith, East Tennessee Development District.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
James Temple, Sevier County Planning.
Jack Wall, City of Loudon, Loudon County.
Chico Messer, Blount County.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Gerald Smith, Town of Farragut.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Jim Snow, Knox County Engineering Public Works.
Chris Alley, City of Knoxville Engineering, proxy for Tom Claybo.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Roger Flynn, City of Oak Ridge.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton.
Stacy Morrison, TDOT Planning.
Karen Estes, Knox County CSC Transit.
Tina Whitaker, Lakeway.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, for making me not the last one here. So
There's a truck.
I know. I appreciate that. You making me look good, so I appreciate that.
There's a truck. There's two.
Thank you.
Closed. Do what? And there's roads in UT that are closed.
I found that out the hard way too. So we're all late today, so I appreciate everybody coming. Item number 2 on the agenda is the minutes from the April 8th, 2025 Technical Committee meeting. Has everyone had a chance to hopefully review, and does anybody have any questions or comments about those? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Seeing no other discussion, does all in favor say aye? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. That item's approved. Item number 3 is the fiscal year 23 to 26 TIP project cost overruns. Looks like Mr. Craig is the presenter on this. Go ahead, Craig.
I am. Thank you, Jim. We have 2 cost overruns this month. One from City of Knoxville and an additional one from Oak Ridge. So this is the first one for Pleasant Ridge Road project. I believe this just had bids recently, so essentially we're plussing up the funding to bring this into line with the required funding to award the project. The current funding, we have $9 million and some change there to LSTVG funding. The funding request is for an additional $3 million, $3,061,469 in LSTVG funding, increasing that construction amount on the federal side to $12,110,358. That does represent a 46.8% increase to the original project cost. The total construction cost, including non-participating costs, which are essentially utilities, $18.6 million, and the all phases cost is $21.3 million. The LSTVG cost overrun summary, you may recall that we removed a number of projects that are no longer in the mobility plan or advancing, so that kind of freed up some space in what we currently have programmed for the LSTVG programming. The total list of approved overruns that you see are there, just under $14 million for the overrun amount. With the changes that we had, that programming reserve balance right now stands in excess of $20 million. So this, with the approval, then the revised reserve balance will be $18.3 million. And then here's just kind of another way of representing that, taking a look at what we've got there, both the revenue coming in, what's programmed, that new overrun request down there, and you see that projected balance out in fiscal 26 again, just under $18.4 million. And I will pause on that one before we move to the CMAQ request from Oak Ridge if there are any questions about the Pleasant Ridge project. If there are none, we can go ahead and proceed to the Oak Ridge request. Again, this is the second request, and I believe, if I recall correctly, this also is, we have bids coming in, so we're also matching what came in, the additional cost that's being added. This has a mix of funding, both CMAQ PM 2.5 and state carbon reduction funding, which actually was kind of a financial swap from TDOT in order to manage their budget to utilize those carbon reduction program rather than CMAQ funding. The additional funding request, $538,738 in PM 2.5, increasing that construction federal share to just over $4.3 million, 18.9% increase to the total project cost. You see the total construction funding, that is 100% federal share on those dollars, and the total all-in cost, just over $4.6 million. Similarly, here's what you see on the CMAQ PM 2.5 and the number of overruns that we've had there. This balance in fiscal 25 does get down to a fairly low number, but that's a good thing. We don't want to leave any of that money unexpended on the table. And then with the funding that will be coming in next year, right now, with what we have on the books, projected reserve balance will be just over $3.3 million for fiscal 26. There's just another way of looking at that. It does take a fairly significant portion of the current balance, and that overall right now fiscal 25 reserve balance is pretty small, but when we plus that up next year, we're in a pretty good position to be able to go ahead and fund the other projects that we have. If there are no questions, I do recommend approval of those cost overrun requests, so both of these projects can be awarded and get out on the street.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3 is approved. Item number 4 is the FTA Section 5310 designated recipient status. Looks like Mr. Doug's got this.
Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. Just real quick, these are the funds that the TPO has been managing. When you hear 5310, that is just identifying the funding source at the Federal Transit Administration. There's a lot of different grants that come to our area. A lot of them go to the city of Knoxville and CAT, but this 5310, it's called Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities. It comes to the TPO to manage. Next slide, please. So we're currently the manager of this program, and it started back in 2006. It was a different program back then. It was called Job Access or the New Freedom Program. In 2013, FTA combined 3 programs into one under the 5310 program. And so we've been managing this, and we bring these, we award these funds often to nonprofits to help them buy vans, like through the Sertoma Center, Embry Valley Center, Cerebral Palsy Center, Sunshine Services, Seashells at the whatever. And then we also fund some volunteer programs like the Blount County Smiles, EFRA, the CAC volunteer program, and the Sevier County Live It. But this takes a lot of time to manage. I've primarily been doing that through my career, and now that I've moved up to the TPO coordinator, I really just don't have the time to do this. Across the state, we're the only MPO that was managing this program. All the rest were at a transit agency. And even nationwide, I think it's about less than 10% are at MPOs. Most are being managed at a transit agency. So we're recommending, we've been talking with Karen over at CAC to move the primary function to CAC to manage. And the way we accomplish this is the governor of Tennessee must name CAC the designated recipient. So we would ask the executive board to pass a resolution, and it would go to the governor, and he would issue a letter to FTA naming them. Next slide. Just a little bit more, I don't know if everyone has been here that long, so I wanted to give you a little bit more background. It is a program that's transportation for seniors and individuals with disabilities. It's based on a formula that looks at your senior and disabled population. It's for the urban area, so it's it's beyond the city of Knoxville, Knox County. It's our TPO area. We get about $850,000 of federal funds each year, and that has to be matched. The FTA prescribes that you have to spend at least 55% on capital projects like vans, but you can spend some on operating and up to 10% on admin. And as I mentioned, we have been awarding this to nonprofits and some of the volunteer programs. Some transit agencies just use it for themselves. They take the funds and then they provide additional services. So the way you typically determine what you want to do in your region is it's required that we have this human service transportation coordination plan, and we update that every 4 to 5 years, and it comes to this board and you approve it. But we do community outreach, and in that plan we list the types of strategies that we feel we should fund to help our area. And so since we've been doing it, the primary one that comes up is continuing to help nonprofits buy vans and these volunteer programs. Next slide. I'm not going to go over all of this, but I just want to, it's more than just going through the selection process and having the board pass the grant. We have to put the grant in the FTA system. We also have to be sure all of our subrecipients are being compliant with FTA and TPOt rules. We have a lot of progress reports to do. That we have to. The FTA has Title VI and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise rules, so we have to be sure everything is FTA compliant. So it is quite a bit of work. Next slide. So the reason in talking to Karen at CEC that we thought they would be a good fit is all of our transit programs, whether it's CAT, CEC, or EFTA, they work with the FTA and TPOt on a day-to-day basis. When I do that call for projects once a year or once every 18 months, I have to go into the system that I haven't been in months. It's always changing, there's always new rules. So they're always up to date on everything that's going on. CAC as an agency itself, they manage all types of grants, and this is what they primarily do. They distribute those funds out to nonprofits and other agencies. And even though they're in Knox County, they do have experience working in the surrounding counties, and they've even had some projects that have been all of East Tennessee, so they are able to work outside of Knox County. We discussed this transition with CAT, the city of Knoxville and Ethra, and all are supportive of the move. We will develop a memorandum of agreement about how we'll transition this to CAC, but the TPO still will stay involved. We'll be primarily involved in project selection and updating the human service coordination plan. The coordination plan is planning by its nature, and we feel that's something that would be in our wheelhouse to help them do. So we will continue to update that coordination plan. And then just all the projects have to be selected will still have to come to the TPO Tech Committee. Because it's federal funds, those projects have to be adopted into the TIP, so we will be bringing those to the Tech and Executive Board. So we're not losing that function. You will still see which projects we recommend selecting. So that's kind of my overview, and like I said, as TPO staff, we think this will help us also continue to focus more on what we're charged to do in transportation planning, and we think it's a good fit to have CAC help with this. So I'll take any questions, otherwise we need to recommend this to the Executive Board that we approve CAC.
Sounds good to me, Doug. Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. That item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Number 5 is supplemental SS4A. It's kind of hard to say. Safety plan for Anderson County, and this is to be presented by Mr. Jones.
Morning. Yeah, I'll be talking to y'all about the SS4A plan for Anderson County, and this will be an action item that will require a motion to recommend for endorsement. So the TPO was awarded $30,000 for a supplemental safety plan in the 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for All funding round. That came with $24,000 in federal funds with a $6,000 local match. The purpose of this plan was to expand the study area of the original Regional Roadway Safety Action Plan to cover the entirety of Anderson County beyond just the TPO planning area. And we're administering this grant through FHWA on behalf of the Anderson County Highway Department. So we're expanding this to include unincorporated Anderson County plus the small cities of Norris and Rocky Top. It excludes all state routes and I-75. A few months ago, we developed a project website on Social Pinpoint, and that included an interactive safety map where members of the public could go and pinpoint areas of concern, leave comments and just raise any issues that they might see. And then the highway department conducted 2 public meetings. We also conducted a crash analysis, which used data from the TPOt ASHTO safety platform. We just aggregate all the severe crashes and tried to identify some patterns out of that. And for that analysis, we used the same time frame as the original plan, which was over 5 years from 2016 to September 2021. So what we found is, from the public input, we found that roadway safety and visibility is a pretty big concern. Residents suggested improved signage, reflectors, and guardrails. Speeding and enforcement was also big. Residents reported high speed passing and general lack of enforcement, and they generally suggested lowering speed limits in those areas. Some context on the crash factors. Over half of the serious crashes occurred on roadways with a 45 mile per hour posted speed limit, but 65% of the crashes were single vehicle. I mean, they were run off the road into a ditch or a fixed object. There was no other car involved. And from this, we identified 11 priority roadway segments and ranked them by factors such as severity, public input, and equity. We used a disadvantaged communities index to identify areas that, or roads that pass through those communities. And then information provided for each segment, such as primary crash types and recommended treatments on those corridors. There's an example of one of those corridors there. So we are recommending or requesting endorsement of the supplemental SS4A safety plan for Anderson County. We will post this addition to the plan on the TPO website along with the original regional roadway safety action plan. And this will enable Anderson County to apply for an SS4A implementation grant, such as the upcoming or current notice of funding opportunity for the fiscal year 2025. That one involves a $1 billion pot that includes $700 million for implementation and $300 million for planning. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Thank you, John. That's a good summary. Any questions?
Motion to endorse that.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to endorse.
Second.
Motion and second. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 5 is approved. Number 6 is TDOT and FHWA updates.
Hey, good morning. Again, Stacy Morrison with TDOT Planning. Give a quick update. You all saw a presentation at the last meeting regarding the 10-year plan. Since the last meeting, the state's budget has been approved, which includes some additional projects that were not part of the original draft. I'm just going to go through the highlights here real quick. So there's an additional $80 million in reoccurring, $1 billion in non-reoccurring dollars. Some of the reoccurring is we took a percentage from the tire. That's again, we're in tough words today. The tire sales tax revenue is going to go to TDOT for that reoccurring as well. So that'll allow us to continue funding additional items on a reoccurring basis. Primarily, those items are pavement preservation, bridge preservation, additional mowing and litter program, and then spot safety, as well as the rural service patrol. So the help trucks, the chartreuse trucks you see out there within the urban cores, those will be expanded along the interstate corridors across the entire state. So that'll be a good plus for safety and help with there. So there's 96 total projects in the plan. So there was 2 phases of that. You all saw the draft at the earlier meeting. So there was additional 11 projects added to the plan when it was adopted as a final budget. Let's see, highlight So overall, 23 new projects from the last year's 10-year plan. So kind of split the difference there on what was in the draft and then additional projects there. So again, that's 96 total that are in the 10-year plan now. You'll see on the project map on there, if you go, there's the video you'll see, and then if you go to the 10-year project plan, yeah, hit that one. You'll see information on the maps. We wanted to highlight some items. So we delivered 100% on 2024 projects. So you'll see a little checkered flag that we completed those projects, or they're under construction and almost completed. So you'll see all those projects listed on the map as well. And then also, we can get you to some additional links too. So there's also additional 3-year plans, which are some alternative delivery projects, bridge program, the safety program, and the pavement program. So those are all separate as well, and gives you a little bit more detail on those. Okay. So any questions? Hopefully you get all the information there on the website. But
I think I also included to the email that went out to you that we got 2 new projects added on, the Watt Road interchange and the Campbell Station Road interchange. Both were big ticket items. And I know our executive board had been really concerned about those because when the first 10-year plan, those had kind of fallen off. So we're excited that those are back on the list. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other business, we have the executive board meeting Wednesday the 28th at 9 a.m. in this room, and then the upcoming TPO technical committee will be on June the 10th at 9 a.m.
Don't hold me to this, but we're maybe hoping to cancel the June meeting. We've had a good long run, and we really appreciate everyone's effort. But
don't get my hopes up.
Yeah, as soon as I say that, there'll be an emergency thing that has to come through, but we're thinking about it.
Thank you, Doug. Public comment, is anyone here from the public would like to comment? Anybody online? So, sounds like we are good. Item number 9 is adjourned. Is there a motion? Motion. All right, we're adjourned.
And we have a workshop starting very shortly, so you want to go straight into it, or you want to, how do you want to do that, Craig?
No rest for anyone. We're going straight into workshop.
That's not on your agenda.
Do you feel like you've been ambushed, Jim? This is going to be a relatively quick, straightforward stuff. Just want to walk through a little bit where we are on things. And Dallas, I've got a PDF that was in there that I'll want to get to potentially at some point. The version of that. Do you have? That was it's in the folder. Okay, never mind. Everybody has them in hard copies, so that'll be all right. So, again, real quickly, just want to give you all an update, and I appreciate the work that everybody's done in helping us kind of resolve what's always the biggest challenge with the TIP development is aligning revenues with costs for project requests. So, going to go real quickly review through that. We talked about project policies. Just want to touch base on those, just to remind you all what we're proceeding with. Critically, the CMAQ programming policy has some impact on a few projects on our draft constraint list. Give you an update on where we are with the schedule moving forward and any other discussion that you may have. So again, as you recall, when we talked last time, we provided an update on where everything was, and we're looking at challenges across our programs. So the 3 TPO generated revenues, LSTVG is that largest pot and most flexible. TAP program, LSTVG, again with the speaking today. Transportation alternatives, and then carbon reduction program. So this is after the discussion with everybody. If we look at revenue projected, we've got 121 million on the LCVG. Expenditures constrained right now at $88.1 million. So we've got a contingency reserve amount there, actually fairly significant of $33.6 million right now with unprogrammed funding there. TAP program, $12.4 million. expenditure of 7.5, so a contingency reserve of 4.9, carbon reduction, a similar size program of $10.9 million in revenue, 7.2 in expenditures, and a $3.7 million contingency reserve. Let's see here. Funded projects, when we revised that program request, we went from $171 million of ask down to $95.8 million of LSTBG. Actually 88.1, not 95.8. That's a typo, I think there. The TAP program, previously we had 13.8. We've moved that down and shifted some of that over to the carbon reduction program is essentially what happened there. As you saw, carbon reduction actually was relatively under requested, so we've shifted some of that money over from the TAP program to the carbon reduction is essentially what happened in that case. Again, fiscal constraint notes, all of the TPO derived funding programs are fiscally constrained. The key takeaway is those reserves may look like we kind of are leaving some money on the table unused right now, but I would suggest that where we are having a greater than 10% program reserves, we would anticipate that we may allow for additional project phases. Part of the discussion of constraint was moving phases out based on looking at what are realistic schedules and things of that nature. What this may allow us to do is if a project does continue to develop and say we pushed it out of 2029, but we get there and we're able to be ready to move to that phase, we may be able to pull that back in because of having a little bit more flexibility in our funding cycle. If we get to that point and we're not anticipating that, we may actually be able to do a mid-cycle project call to add additional new start projects in. We had some of our local sponsors that did not make applications this cycle, so that may give them some flexibility to begin to prepare and ask for a new project, maybe in fiscal, when we get a couple of years out from now, maybe we can have a project call in 2027 with available revenue. I do also have CMAQ PM 2.5 included in that draft program. That project is in consultation with TDOT, so I'm kind of leaving that off of our overall constraint, but there is a slide here kind of showing where we are on that that'll look familiar to you here in a moment. LSTBG funding estimate, this is a little different. Rather than in the past we've shown rollover as well as new project requests. Last time we weren't able to add any new projects, but fortunately this time with the movement from everybody, we were able to fold in, for the most part, in some fashion or another, new project requests that were included. So I've rather than breaking them out between rollover and new starts, I've just had our proposed programming. So there's, as you kind of walk it across the years, we're relatively low number there in fiscal 2027 on that balance, keeping in mind that we have that contingency reserve. So we would, when we get to the end, that $33.6 million, the contingency reserve is 12.2. So really we've kind of are leaving about $20 million of headspace that in theory we could have programmed, but I think this puts us in a more flexible position moving forward. TAP programming, very similar program that you see, kind of same structure to this table, fiscal balance in each of the fiscal years, and ultimately with the unprogrammed amount of just under $5 million when you get out to the kind of final takeaway line. Carbon reduction program, again, same, balanced in having fiscal constraint in each year and about $3.7 million in unprogrammed funds when we get out to the end. Here's PM 2.5, again, not projecting revenues in any of the given year, but you can kind of do the math in your head there. I would indicate that we'll talk a little bit about programming policies here in a moment. TDOT's programming policy that they have kind of suggested that we utilize as well is not programming right away and construction phases until we get closer to notice to proceed for that phase. So very little programmed out in those out years because of that reason. So most of the ask is there in year one, and we will have some impacts to some projects. When those projects that would be using construction funding in say 27, we've got a couple in 2027, we'll amend those phases back into the TIP at that time. Real quickly on policies review, we've talked about this. Delayed project policy, really the only update to this that I've already provided is that we're going to do that update twice annually rather than in the past, I think it indicated that we would do that quarterly, and we have moved to twice annual local project review. So we're going to try to do a more comprehensive update of what the status of funds are versus both their delivery, how close they are to being on target to schedules, as well as what's happened with obligations twice annually. So just kind of an update on what we're going to do reporting out. Contingency reserve policy, we talked about the last program was a 9% reserve. That was kind of a conceding to, that was the largest amount that we could constrain within the program. I think we had wanted to get to 10%, and we're going to move that to 10% with this policy. I'll point out that this cycle, we've actually got process cost overruns that are 12.6% of the program. It always tends to work out, and we kind of shift program funding around to get there. But I think 10% is a good starting point to allow us that flexibility. And again, right now we're in a larger percentage of that, so we're over, essentially overfunding that contingency reserve at this point for greater flexibility. New projects policy, no change to that policy. Rollover policy, essentially that says that we prioritize rollover projects over adding new projects. This time, fortunately, we were able to both fund our rollover projects and fold new projects into the program. So happy about that this time. And then here's the new policy, CMAQ programming. And again, I will point out that the second paragraph that TDOT is going to program NEPA design phases for CMAQ projects, and subsequent phases, right-of-way construction, will either be noted as a reserve line item or in the comment section of the TIP. That's my intention moving forward. I believe that impacts either 3 or 4 projects on this draft project list, and just kind of be aware of that. And then the looking ahead schedule, working with TDOT and local programs revisions based on the draft I've given. If you have any heartburn over any of the suggested programming of your projects that's in the handout that Jonah walked around for everyone, working towards assembling a draft tip in June to get to TDOT's review. Again, as Doug mentioned, we would not anticipate that we will have meetings in June and be back in July to have the draft tip for review at this point, and targeting an October for approval. And the critical point on that sometimes comes up, that federal approval of a document that if it's adopted in October generally will be sometime in the January 2026. So that would be when the new tip is active, and funding that is programmed in that will be available for obligation of phases. If you got a project that you want to get starting on NEPA, you wouldn't be able to start until January 2026. And like I said, the draft programming list that you see there is the programming that kind of generates the fiscal constraint that's demonstrated there. So I would ask that you think nothing on here should be a real large surprise to anyone based on the conversations that I've had with y'all. But please take a look at that, and if you have any questions, you can follow up with me on that. If any have jumped out at you right now, you can feel free to ask that. And I guess I would point out the one thing that might be a different one for the city. Your Chapman Highway ATMS project construction is in fiscal 2027. So right now you'll see that those dollars are not programmed in 2027, but they'll be noted on that project. We're looking at maybe putting all of the CMAQ projects into a grouping this time, so it'll be slightly different. We'll be able to show that reserve CMAQ funding there. The Broadway ABC project is similar. There's construction in 2027. I would point out this also applies to Maryville. You've got a new project for your traffic operations upgrade and has right-of-way construction out in those years, and that would apply there as well. It'd be in that grouping, and also would not currently show right-of-way or construction programming, but it's got programming, but it'll still be documented. Sure. When we get closer. And then Oak Ridge signal timing, this one's a little maybe more impactful there because only the construction phase is left on that right now, Roger. So we would, I envision that will be, it essentially is, it will be like an illustrative list within that CMAQ grouping where that project will be shown as, it's in the document, but it's not programmed. It's a little different, and then we'll coordinate with the CMAQ office when we get, if we are getting to a notice to proceed for construction in 2027. So.
I actually have the time extension laying on my desk from TDOT, so we have that amendment done.
Okay.
Craig, what happened to the memorandum of understanding we did with TDOT about transferring dollars? Was that?
The funding swap?
Yeah.
Yep. So that, let me back up here. That has taken place. Funding has been moved forward. Let me go. Where am I at? Okay, right there. That allocation and balance. Essentially, they have begun when we obligate local SCBG dollars. Now we have. I'm trying to remember the number. I do not recall off the top of my head. Somewhere in the $60 million range. I think maybe it was 55. That was swapped from our money, and essentially now we have a dollar tracker, and they're beginning to pay us back with STBG dollars. STBG dollars from a federal perspective it's the same money, so it comes back in that sense. So it's kind of transparent.
Yeah, but did it need to be a policy, like in our TIP, as a TIP policy or something, or does that memorandum of understanding kind of cover everything we're good with?
To my experience or impression, it does cover it. We have that MOU that's been signed by this board and TDOT. So we have that tracker, and there's a spreadsheet that I work with TDOT on documenting what's gone out and what comes back in. So essentially it shows up here in this balance. It's just STBG dollars versus LSTBG dollars, but the feds see it all as the same.
I think it'd be interesting to see like how much is going in and going out at some point, maybe like once a year or something, so we kind of have a review internally.
Yeah, it went out in one instance. That could be the case on an annual basis. We haven't heard anything about that for this year. That money was flexed out last year, and we've started to get payment back on some smaller, relatively few million dollars. Yep, they are paying us back.
Yeah, we are.
That's a good question.
Real quick, and again, I think we're going to have like an annual evaluation of that across the state, because again, that gives us the buying power and ability to request additional dollars from Federal Highway. So that's the goal there. And just like Craig mentioned earlier on the other project, I think you were down to like $50,000. I mean, that's the closest to zero as possible. That's what we need to show, that we're using the dollars as fast as possible. And I think the approach you're using is really good.
Yeah.
Jack, I think we can somehow report back to you like once a year or something like that.
I think it's important. I mean, it's something that when I was at TDOT, we talked about for years. The CPOs had money sitting there, and we're trying to go to the Fed and ask for more money. So I think it is beneficial. I just, from a transparency standpoint, I think it's important to just kind of reflect it somehow once a year or something. I mean, it is a partnership here.
Yeah, I think as part of that, when we're doing the project tracking, I think I'm going the wrong way. We're doing the project tracking update. Where it went? Did I skip it? Cost overrun, contingency, reserve. When we're doing the delayed project policy and provide an update on that, we can fold that in there, some notation about what's been paid back on obligation. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
But I'll make a note and report on it next time we meet, see our status on that. I know we're going to evaluate it statewide once a year at least, but we'll continue to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, that Pleasant Ridge Road project that we just had a cost overrun for, I know those dollars, when they got notice to proceed for construction and obligated dollars, that was a payback project. So, and generally when we're doing those projects now, I'm making a note in there that those will be paid back. So that's kind of that, I think. Again, like I said, if you have any questions about your projects, if there's anything that looks askance to you or doesn't agree with what we had talked about in our discussions, if you have any major concerns about any of these, please follow up with me. This will be the proposed list of projects in this fashion that will move forward for locally advanced projects at this point, unless I hear otherwise.
Good job.
Thank you everyone for your efforts in constraining the program.
Hey, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Craig. We didn't talk about acronyms this morning, but what is RCP? That's the one I didn't know. I'm
That
sure
is-
it's not reinforced concrete pipe.
It
so
is
it's-
not reinforced concrete pipe. That is reconnecting communities. So that is a.
That was one I hadn't seen before.
So that was a project that the city of Knoxville, you may recall with the work around the stadium and the James White Parkway conversion, had a grant that was awarded.
Cool.
That contract agreement has not been signed, is my latest understanding, and I know that is a project that is receiving scrutiny from the current administration. So until we're told that those monies are no longer available, we are presuming that they are available, but.
I hadn't seen anything.
Yep. There are no questions. Thank you everyone for the quickest workshop on earth.
Are we free?
You're